Here is something that stopped me in my tracks when I first learned it. 80% of all autoimmune disease patients are women, 8 out of 10. And the rates are rising fastest in women under the age of 45. This is not a coincidence. This is a pattern. And today we are going to talk about it honestly, practically, and in a way that actually gives you something to do about it. Welcome back to Living Simpler. I am Amy Mewborn, and if you are new here, this show is about cutting through the noise in the wellness world and giving you real, evidence-based, actionable information so you can make decisions that actually support your health. Today's episode is one that is really personal to me, and I am going to share why in just a moment. We are talking about autoimmune disease, what it is, why it is rising so dramatically in women, what is silently driving it in your body, and most importantly, what you can actually do about it starting today. I want you to stay with me through the whole episode because we are going to get specific, not surface level, not eat more vegetables and reduce stress. Real, specific, actionable steps that you can actually implement. Let's go. I need to start here because I think it matters that you understand where I am coming from. I am not sharing this topic as someone who studied it from the outside. I am sharing it as someone who is living it. At 29 years old, I had a stroke. It was caused by birth control. I was young. I was healthy by every conventional standard, and it happened anyway. That experience cracked open my understanding of how vulnerable we are to things we are told are safe, things that have been approved, prescribed, and recommended by the very system we are taught to trust. Then, in 2023, I was diagnosed with MOGAD. That stands for myelin oligodendrocyte glycoprotein antibody disease. It is a rare autoimmune condition that affects the central nervous system. My immune system was attacking the myelin sheath around my nerve fibers, the protective coating that allows your brain and nervous system to communicate properly. The conventional treatment protocol involves immunosuppressant medications, drugs that turn down your immune system systemically so it stops attacking itself. I sat with that option. I researched it. I talked to practitioners I trust, and I made a different choice. I chose to go deep into the root causes. I chose to look at what my immune system was responding to rather than simply silencing it. And I want to be really clear here. This was my personal decision made with full awareness of the risks and with practitioners who know my case intimately. I am not telling you what to do. I am telling you what I did, and I am sharing what I learned in that process because I believe it can genuinely help you understand your own body. What I found completely changed how I understand health, how I live, and what I teach. Let me give you the landscape first so you understand just how significant this issue is for women specifically. Over 50 million Americans are currently living with an autoimmune condition. That makes autoimmune disease the third most common category of illness in the United States, right behind cardiovascular disease and cancer. And yet it receives a fraction of the research funding, the media coverage, and the public awareness. Hashimoto's thyroiditis is one of the most common autoimmune conditions, and it is wildly underdiagnosed because standard thyroid panels often do not include the antibody testing that would catch it. Here's a statistic that I think every woman deserves to know. 80% of hypothyroidism cases are actually Hashimoto's, meaning the immune system is actively attacking the thyroid gland. Most women who are handed a thyroid prescription are never told their immune system is destroying the very organ that prescription is supposed to support. That is like turning off the smoke alarm while the fire is still burning. Rheumatoid arthritis affects 3 times more women than men. Lupus affects 9 times more women than men. Multiple sclerosis is increasingly more common in women than men, and that gap has widened significantly in recent decades. Celiac disease, Sjogren's syndrome, psoriasis, inflammatory bowel disease, all of these disproportionately affect women, and all of them are rooted in the same underlying immune dysfunction. And here is what I think is even more alarming than the diagnosed cases. An estimated 10 to 15% of the population has an active autoimmune reaction causing severe symptoms, but remains undiagnosed because they do not yet have what conventional medicine calls permanent tissue damage. The medical system typically waits until something is irreversibly broken before it gives you a label and a treatment plan. That means millions of women are suffering right now, feeling dismissed, told their labs are normal, told it is stress or anxiety or just getting older, when there is actually something very real and very measurable happening inside their immune system. It also means that if you have one autoimmune condition that is unmanaged, you are highly likely to develop others, because the root inflammatory mechanism, the thing driving the immune system to attack in the first place, is never addressed. Rheumatoid arthritis leads to Hashimoto's, leads to lupus, not because you are unlucky, but because the fire was never put out. So let's talk about the fire. Here is the question that leads to healing, and it is not the question most conventional doctors are trained to ask. Most doctors ask, how do we suppress the immune response? And that question makes sense from a symptom management standpoint, but it does not lead to healing. It leads to management, and there is a very big difference between those two things. The question that leads to healing is this: why is the immune system responding this way in the first place? And what is it responding to? The answer almost always comes back to three things: chronic inflammation, metabolic dysfunction, and toxic overload. Not one of these in isolation, but often all three working together, creating an internal environment where the immune system loses its ability to distinguish what belongs to the body and what does not. Chronic inflammation is the foundation of this entire conversation. The World Health Organization identifies it as the greatest threat to human health and the leading cause of death globally. Nearly 3 in 5 adults have at least one inflammatory condition. And here is what most people do not realize. 90% of inflammation occurs silently inside cells without any obvious swelling or pain. The signs look like persistent fatigue, brain fog, stubborn belly fat that will not move no matter what you do, poor sleep, slow recovery from illness or injury, and a general feeling that your body is just not working the way it used to. These are symptoms that are very easy to explain away and very easy for a doctor to dismiss. Blood sugar dysregulation is one of the most powerful drivers of that chronic inflammation. Every time your blood sugar spikes and then crashes, you create an inflammatory cascade in your body. If you are eating in a way that causes blood sugar swings multiple times a day, you are creating inflammatory conditions in your body multiple times a day. 88% of American adults have some form of metabolic dysfunction, and people with insulin resistance have 2 to 3 times higher levels of inflammatory markers than people with healthy metabolic function. Hormonal imbalance feeds directly into this cycle. Your endocrine system and your immune system are not separate. They are deeply mechanistically connected. Estrogen, progesterone, cortisol, and thyroid hormones all play active roles in regulating immune function. This is a significant part of why autoimmune disease disproportionately affects women. Our hormones shift throughout our cycles, through perimenopause, through menopause, through postpartum, and each of those hormonal transitions affects how our immune system is calibrated. And then there is chronic stress. This one is so normalized in our culture that most women do not even recognize how much of a physiological burden it is. Chronic stress can raise inflammatory markers by up to 60%. When your nervous system is in a constant state of fight or flight, your immune system is chronically activated. Over time, that constant activation becomes dysregulated. Busyness is a silent driver of immune disease, and I say that as someone who built multiple businesses and ran herself into the ground, believing that productivity was a virtue above all else. It is not. Your nervous system pays the price, and eventually your immune system does too. Now, I want to spend some time on the piece of this conversation that I think is the most overlooked, and it was one of the most genuinely shocking pieces of my own education when I went deep into my healing. The average woman is exposed to more than 168 unique chemicals before she leaves the house in the morning. 168 before breakfast, before she walks out the door. Women use an average of 12 personal care products every single day. Shampoo, conditioner, face wash, moisturizer, serum, foundation, mascara, deodorant, perfume, and more. Each of those products contains multiple synthetic ingredients. Many of those ingredients are endocrine disruptors, meaning they directly interfere with your hormone signaling and your immune function. And here is the part that most health conversations completely skip. Endocrine disrupting chemicals do not just affect your hormones in isolation, they affect your immune system, because these two systems are deeply interconnected. When one is disrupted, the other suffers. And many of these chemicals were never tested for long-term safety in women. Many were approved decades ago under standards that are completely inadequate by modern scientific understanding. And yet we are applying them to our skin, our hair, our lips, and our armpits every single day. Let me get specific because I think specificity is what actually drives change. Conventional cleaning products. The synthetic fragrances in most conventional cleaning products are classified as trade secrets, which means manufacturers legally do not have to disclose what chemicals are in them. Many contain phthalates, which are endocrine disruptors. Others contain ingredients that create indoor air pollution every single time you use them. You clean your kitchen and you breathe in a chemical cocktail. Beauty and personal care. Parabens used as preservatives in moisturizers and shampoos mimic estrogen in the body. Formaldehyde releasers are found in nail products and some hair treatments. Heavy metals, including lead, are found in some lipsticks and eyeshadows. These are not fringe concerns or conspiracy theories. These are documented, measurable, and in many cases, the same products that are sitting in your bathroom right now. Water. Tap water in most communities in the United States contains chlorine and chloramine used during treatment. It also frequently contains traces of pharmaceuticals, agricultural runoff, PFAS, compounds known as forever chemicals, because they do not break down in the body or the environment, and increasingly, microplastics. I need to stop here specifically on microplastics because the research coming out in the last 2 years is something every woman needs to hear. A study published in 2024 found microplastics in 100% of the human testicles and placentas tested. Not some, 100%. Microplastics have now been detected in human blood, in breast milk, in lung tissue, in brain tissue, and in arterial plaques. These are not particles that your body was designed to encounter. They are recognized as foreign invaders. They trigger an immune response. And when that immune response is being triggered constantly and chronically by particles you cannot see or feel, your immune system is in a state of continuous low-grade activation, and we are right back to chronic inflammation. Microplastics also disrupt the gut microbiome, and this matters enormously because 70 to 80% of your immune system lives in your gut. The health of your microbiome directly determines how well your immune system is calibrated. When the microbiome is disrupted, immune dysregulation follows. It is not complicated. It is cause and effect. The average person also has approximately 200 industrial chemicals detectable in their blood. The total chemical burden we carry in our bodies today is something that simply did not exist at this scale 50 years ago. And we are wondering why autoimmune disease is rising. Before I get into what you can actually do about all of this, I want to take a quick moment to tell you about something inside the Living Simpler Collective. Inside my membership community, I have built out a full course library specifically around the topics we are covering in this episode today. Full courses on autoimmune healing, detox protocols, hormonal weight loss, and peptides for women's health. These are not quick blog posts or overview videos. They are comprehensive educational experiences built on the same research and clinical insights you hear on this show, with real protocols and implementation guides that walk you through exactly what to do and in what order. If you are listening to this episode and thinking, I want to go so much deeper than this, the Living Simpler Collective is where that happens. You can learn more and join us at livingasimpler.com. I will make sure the link is in the show notes. Okay, let's talk about what you can actually do, because I promised you this episode would not leave you in overwhelm, and I meant it. Here's how I think about this and how I recommend you approach it too. You have 4 primary levers: reduce inflammation through food and lifestyle, improve your metabolic function, support your body's natural detoxification pathways, and reduce your daily environmental toxic load. You do not have to pull all 4 levers at once. You identify the place with the highest leverage for your situation, and you start there. On the food side, the most immediate and impactful changes you can make are removing seed oils and dramatically reducing processed sugar. Seed oils, meaning canola, soybean, sunflower, and corn oil, are in virtually every packaged food and most restaurant food. They are highly processed, they oxidize rapidly in the body, and they are one of the most significant drivers of dietary inflammation. Eliminating them is one of the highest impact dietary changes you can make, and it matters more than almost anything else on a standard anti-inflammatory protocol. Processed sugar fuels inflammation, feeds harmful gut bacteria, and spikes blood sugar. You do not need to be perfect, but dramatically reducing it changes the internal environment of your body. For autoimmune conditions specifically, gluten is something to take seriously. Gluten can trigger intestinal permeability, commonly called leaky gut, in susceptible individuals. And leaky gut is one of the most significant drivers of immune dysregulation. When the gut lining is compromised, proteins that should stay inside the digestive tract escape into the bloodstream, and the immune system mounts a response. Over time, that response can become misdirected at your own tissue. I eliminated gluten completely as part of my own protocol. This is a decision you have to make for yourself, but it is worth researching and considering, especially if you have an existing autoimmune diagnosis. Conventional dairy is another common inflammatory trigger, particularly for those with autoimmune conditions, due to both the protein structure and the hormone content in most commercial dairy products. On the other side, prioritize foods that actively work against inflammation. Wild-caught fatty fish for omega-3 fatty acids, dark leafy greens, berries, extra virgin olive oil, turmeric, and ginger, both of which have well-documented anti-inflammatory mechanisms and have been studied extensively in this context. On the metabolic side, the simplest shift you can make immediately is this: eat protein and fat first at every meal before any carbohydrates. This single habit blunts the blood sugar spike, keeps you fuller longer, supports steady energy throughout the day, and reduces the inflammatory burden that comes from blood sugar swings. It costs you nothing. It requires no supplements. You can do it at your very next meal. Reduce ultra-processed foods and refined carbohydrates. These are the fastest drivers of metabolic dysfunction and the fastest way to keep your immune system in a state of chronic activation. Protect your sleep. This is non-negotiable for metabolic health. One night of poor sleep can create a level of insulin resistance equivalent to weeks of poor eating. If you are doing everything else right and your sleep is consistently compromised, your metabolic health will reflect that. Sleep is not a lifestyle luxury, it is a physiological requirement. For detoxification, your body already has a sophisticated and intelligent system for eliminating what does not belong. The liver, kidneys, lymphatic system, colon, skin, and lungs all play a role. The goal is not to do some extreme cleanse. The goal is to support these systems so they can do the job they were designed to do. Cruciferous vegetables actively support liver detoxification. Broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, arugula, and kale all support the phase 1 and phase 2 detoxification pathways in the liver. 1 to 2 servings per day makes a measurable difference. Infrared sauna is a consistent part of my personal protocol. Sweat is a legitimate detox pathway, particularly for heavy metals and certain fat-soluble toxins that other organs struggle to process efficiently. Prioritize daily bowel movements. If you are not eliminating at least once per day, toxins that your liver has already processed are being reabsorbed rather than excreted. This is one of the most overlooked pieces of a detox conversation, and it is also one of the most foundational. For reducing your toxic load on a daily basis, start with your cleaning products. You do not need harsh chemicals to clean your home effectively. Swap to fragrance-free, plant-based products, Branch Basics, 7th generation free and clear, or even a basic Castile soap solution handle most household cleaning needs without the chemical burden. Audit your personal care products. Download the EWG Healthy Living app and scan your current products. You do not have to replace everything at once. Replace items as they run out, choosing cleaner versions each time. This is sustainable and it adds up significantly over the course of a year. Filter your water. This is one of the highest impact investments you can make for your health and your family's health. A quality reverse osmosis system or a solid carbon block filter removes PFAS compounds, heavy metals, chlorine, and significantly reduces microplastic content. I treat this as a priority, not a someday goal. Add a HEPA air purifier with activated carbon to your sleeping space at minimum. You spend approximately a third of your life in your bedroom. The air quality in that room matters. Activated carbon specifically captures VOCs and chemical vapors that standard HEPA filtration alone does not address. Choose organic produce, particularly for the items on the Environmental Working Group's Dirty Dozen list. Strawberries, spinach, kale, peaches, pears, and bell peppers consistently carry the highest pesticide loads in conventional produce. Prioritizing organic for these specific items is a targeted and cost-effective approach. And reduce plastic food and drink containers. Move toward glass and stainless steel for food storage. Never heat food in plastic. Eliminate single-use plastic water bottles as a daily habit. These are small shifts that reduce your daily exposure meaningfully. I also want to mention something that we cover in depth inside the Living Simpler Collective, and that is peptides. Peptides are one of the most exciting areas of research in functional and regenerative health right now, and they have particular relevance for women navigating autoimmune conditions, inflammation, and hormonal shifts. Things like BPC 157 for gut inflammation and tissue healing, GHKCU for calming autoimmune responses and supporting mitochondrial function, and microdosed GLP-1s for decreasing inflammatory cytokines and stabilizing blood sugar. This is a topic that deserves its own full episode, and I do have a complete course on it inside the collective if you want to go deep on it right now. Everything is at livingassimpler.com. Let me close today's episode with the thing I most want you to carry with you. Your body is not broken. Your body is not betraying you. Your body is responding intelligently to an environment that it was never designed to handle at this scale. The level of toxic exposure, the inflammatory food supply, the metabolic disruption, the nervous system overload that the average modern woman is navigating every single day did not exist 50 years ago. Your body is doing its absolute best in an environment that has changed faster than biology can adapt. And here is what that means. It means this is not your fault. And it also means you have real power to change it. Because if external inputs created the internal environment where your immune system became dysregulated, then changing those inputs changes the environment. That is not wishful thinking. That is biology. Healing is not about being perfect. It is about systematically reducing the burden and consistently rebuilding the foundation. Every anti-inflammatory meal matters. Every product you swap out matters. Every night of protected sleep matters. Every glass of filtered water, every time you choose protein first, every time you take 10 minutes to sit outside in the sunlight, these things compound. Over weeks and months and years, they build a different internal environment and a different immune response. You are more powerful in your healing than most of the medical system has ever led you to believe. And that is the core conviction behind everything we build inside Living Simpler. If this episode resonated with you, please share it with a woman in your life who needs to hear it. Whether she has a diagnosis, whether she is in the middle of trying to figure out what is wrong, or whether she just has that feeling that something is off and nobody can tell her why. This information matters and it belongs in more hands. Leave a review if you are listening on Apple Podcasts. It is one of the most meaningful ways you can support this show and help other women find it. And if you are ready to go deeper on autoimmune healing, detox, metabolic health, hormones, or peptides, come find us inside the Living Simpler Collective. Full courses, real protocols, and a community of women doing this work alongside you. Everything is at livingassimpler.com, and the link is always in the show notes. Thank you so much for being here today. Keep living just a bit simpler, and I will see you next week.